Hello.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I'm Alice.
I'm Beatrix. We're the Lighthouse coordinators.
Lighthouse is an exciting on-campus initiative at UWC Atlantic. It's a hub for meaningful change making.
And we're so excited to bring you this EU conference for the future of Europe.
Lighthouse supports student innovation, development, and growth, and hosts exciting events such as this. So without much further ado, we will pass you on to Shini, who is going to be guiding you through this exciting event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our event, which is officially part of the European Union Conference on the Future of Europe. I would like to say a big thank you for everyone who is attending our event. How can we provide digital education for the underprivileged, for those who are in person in Atlantic College and online? My name is Xing Yao, and I'm a recent graduate of UWC Atlantic College from Hong Kong. This event has been organized with another AC alumnus, Tobias Boozman, for months. Along with this, we must pay a big thank you for UWC Lighthouse Initiative to help us host this event. The aim of the Lighthouse Initiative is to promote meaningful change-making on campus, equipping students with the skills and knowledge to induce social change. And last but not least, a thank you to all our amazing guest speakers for agreeing to be part of this event. We're very looking forward to your presentations. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, we've all heard the phrases online learning, remote learning, working remotely, work from home, concepts and practices that all have become much more relevant in our lives. Inspired by this potential, we hope that today we can share how digital education and skills can address social challenges from different facets, perspectives, and solutions. If we're on track with time, in between each presentation, we will have a short period of time to ask some questions. We are having a longer Q&A section after all the presentations are finished. We hope that today we can provide a glimpse and understanding of the current challenges of education, especially in the scope of Europe, as in line with the EU Conference on the Future of Europe. In-person students will create innovative solutions and ideas to tackle this issue. Through our structured design thinking activities, we hope that students can also learn how design thinking can be used to solve systemic issues. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our keynote presentation from Dr. Michael Gallagher. Michael is a program director of the Masters in Digital Education at the University of Edinburgh and a core member of the UNA Europe's Future University Lab. Along with this, he has a long list of experiences and projects related to digital education in many parts of the world, spanning from Europe to Africa and even Asia. The floor is yours, Michael.
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay, so I can get started with the presentation. And as Jenny was saying, I'm from the University of Edinburgh, and I'm also representing at the same time the master's degree program in digital education. So we've had a master's program studying just digital education since 2005. And I'll talk a little bit about that today, but mostly I'm going to talk about the idea of educational futures and how we sort of chart the idea of a future when so many are available to us, and the future often looks very uncertain and at times very scary. So this presentation will be showing that you do have agency in this process. There's things that you can do to create preferable futures for us all. Again, I'm from the Center for Research in Digital Education at the University of Edinburgh, and I'll be talking a little bit about some of the work I do there in this presentation. Past, present, and future, there are three basic things we'll be doing today in this short little presentation. It's not meant to be long. It's meant to hopefully invigorate you a little bit for the work you're going to do this afternoon, I think, in the workshop. So number one, it's the challenges of increasingly defining education through the digital. We've all experienced the pandemic for the last few years and this massive movement online. That movement online was very uneven. It did not benefit many who remain offline. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But there are things we can do to make that a little bit more inclusive and equitable. We'll talk about the divides, digital divides mostly, and surfacing marginalized communities in this space. How do we surface their voice? How do we make them and our educational programs inclusive? and why all this matters. It matters a great deal. The work you're doing today really does matter. So hopefully you see it like that. Digital technology, it's important to note, digital technology alone does not transform education. That's largely a myth. It's that despite the talk of computers blowing up the school and mass scale open learning, some of that has been true, but the main institutional structures of education have remained relatively intact over the past 40 years. So the disruption that you often hear of when it comes to the digital in education, some of it has been true, but most of education as we know it remains very similar to what it was many, many years ago. So that's both a good thing and a bad thing. Now, the digital divides that we're talking about, this is the really important bit, is that are not they're not a singular dimension. There are multiple dimensions working in tandem to create a divide. So it's more than ownership of technology. It's more than access. It's more than connectivity, although it includes all of those things. It's more than just use. That's important as well. Use is very uneven and not equally distributed, especially for marginalized communities. And it's more than just content. Remember, the idea of bridging that divide is not merely about delivering content or a curriculum or lessons or learning, any of that stuff, although that's part of it. It's more than that. So the digital divides, as we've experienced them largely over the last couple of years due to the pandemic, there are expressions within that technology use of social and cultural capital. Many of the disadvantaged communities that we are working with or working for, I guess today, do not always enjoy large amounts of social and cultural capital to participate in digital education. Now, capital in that respect is you're banking something that you can use later. Say, for example, your understanding of how to use technology, your understanding of higher education or schools, your understanding of what people expect of you in any particular context. Disadvantaged communities don't always have access to that level of social and cultural capital. It's important. There's significant financial considerations in this digital divide, obviously. Being poor, not having access to particular technologies or connectivity or anything like that is a significant disadvantage, which is fairly obvious, I suppose. There's strong gender disparities in the digital divide, in particular spaces. So in many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, in parts of South Asia, etc., you see strong differentials between what males have access to, what females have access to in terms of the digital. So this idea of digital education is does not achieve gender parity relatively often in some of these contexts. Rural and urban divides are still, will remain for quite some time, the biggest single divide in many of these spaces. The infrastructure, the connectivity, the price points, all of these things favor urban populations much more than rural populations. And so it's important to think about inequality in this respect, thinking about the divide as a stack of different factors that contribute to a larger sense of what the divide is. That is where the marginalization comes from. And your job largely is to peel back that stack one by one to address each of those inequalities. Now, the digital divide, it's important to know, this is from a BBC article that's speaking specifically about UK populations, right? So disadvantaged families are being locked out of education as they cannot afford the cost of online learning. It's important to think about the digital divide not as something that's happening over there, all right? So it's something that's happening everywhere. It could be within relatively advantaged populations. There could be significant divides within that. Generally speaking, the digital is not uniformly distributed across societies. So devices are important, but people also need basic digital skills for life and work with community-based support, which is very important, and it's very often overlooked in a lot of these programs. And low-income households are also less likely to have internet connectivity at home. I think some of that stands to more like, it feels a little bit like common sense. It feels a little bit obvious, but it's not so obvious when you're designing programs to achieve, to help people who might be marginalized. So your job, again, is to work through the layers in the larger inequality stack one by one. Without an address of each of those layers, programs tend to be one-dimensional, and they often fail to achieve their targets or whatever their objective might be. So understanding the context is really important. Social norms matter. How people interact in society is carried with them into the technology. So if you're working with particular groups of people, you need to understand how they interact. What are their social practices that go around that? Do they disadvantage a particular group? Are certain groups already disadvantaged in society? If you move them into the digital, that just tends to accelerate that disadvantage. Everything is connected. I don't mean just connectivity or the technology here. All of these factors are interconnected. It's almost impossible to extract one without having to address the other. So important to see it as a larger whole. And emphasize support and development whenever possible. I'll get to that in a second. So the first case, this is from my current research and projects and things. The first case is about this idea of fidelity to local context. Again, going back to the social norms. It's about understanding what people do in these societies and designing for that, rather than trying to implement a technological solution that doesn't take account for these social practices. The first case is from Uganda. So in Uganda, the challenges of serving refugee populations. So I work on several projects right now currently with Ugandan refugee populations. Uganda has been at the epicenter of a lot of these refugee conversations. They host a large amount of refugees based on their per population per capita. They're also known as being a fairly progressive place for refugee populations. They're relatively well incorporated into the larger society. Now, the challenges with Uganda in this context is that these settlements are quite distributed. The terrain from which one refugee settlement to another is quite far. That's a problem of infrastructure largely. Multiple countries of origin. These refugees are coming from many different countries, many different locations, and they carry with them their own practices. They carry with them, in many cases, multiple languages and identity and allegiances within these groups are quite pronounced as well. Some are coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo, some are coming from Somalia, some are coming from South Sudan. So there's many different locations that they're coming from. The rural-urban divides are quite pronounced, just as they would be in the UK as well. So this difference between rural populations of refugee settlements versus the urban refugee populations are quite pronounced. The access issues are quite difficult. There's high incidence of trauma within these groups. They have fled for a reason. So dealing with their psychological well-being has to become a mission critical part of any kind of educational offering that you make. And significant digital divides, I'm sure that probably goes without saying. Interrupted schooling. They've had their schooling completely interrupted in many cases for multiple years. So understanding where they are in their education becomes quite important. And then there's a general lack of documentation, and it seems silly to think that that would stop anybody, but if they don't have access to their transcripts from their primary schooling or their secondary schooling, or even their university schooling, in many cases, they have to repeat parts of that education because they can't prove that they actually finished it. So that's documentation becomes an issue. So the project is the Foundations for All project. It's MasterCard Foundation funded. It's a project working with Makerere University in Uganda and the Refugee Law Project, which is an amazing organization that provides all sorts of counseling and legal services for refugees in and around Uganda. Also with the American University of Beirut, who has a lot of experience working with refugee populations. Lebanon in particular has the highest ratio of refugees per local population. It's a 1-to-4 ratio essentially. And the University of Edinburgh, where I'm coming from. And then this is run from 2018 and will continue into 2022. And the goal essentially was to create bridging programs for refugees in Uganda to learn and then succeed and access higher education. Now, parts of that are digital, because obviously I'm here. American University of Beirut people are in Lebanon. We don't have access to all these settlements, but the Refugee Law Project is on the ground sort of managing this activity. So we've created a 30-week bridging program. It's blended, it engages with some kinds of technology, and the goal is explicitly to get these students into university. So the curriculum, because of the trauma I had mentioned before, the curriculum has psychosocial support at its heart. And this is a good example of where, if you're looking at tech, sometimes you get a little enamored of the technology without focusing on that human dimension, which is that psychosocial support. Without this counseling, without this emphasis on mental health, these students would disengage quite readily from the program. So it's about pastoral support. How are you designing in these layers of pastoral support and psychosocial support? There's dedicated tutors on site. This is the Refugee Law Project. Blended models to allow for distributed curriculum building. This helped a lot because we were able to design it across the 3 universities simultaneously. And then accounting for the offline-online continuum. You have to reduce barriers one by one. Understanding that people will not have unfettered access and connectivity to online content. So it cannot just sit somewhere like on a learning management system or a website. You have to have this kind of capacity for offline, online access. And Calibri is one we're using for this. It has an offline, online model. So what it does is it downloads essentially the new content when connectivity is good. And then that makes it available via a distributed kind of server. So it's a nifty little solution. I recommend taking a look at it later on. It's free, it's open source, and it's proven a godsend to this project in particular. But we were running this program in the midst of COVID. Obviously, it's still going right now. And then Uganda went on a complete lockdown. So what we had before was learning centers. Each of the learning centers had laptops sort of just ready to go. It became sort of a community hub within the settlement where they could go and engage with their learning or look up other things if they wanted to. But all that changed. And when Uganda went on lockdown about 4 months ago, everything we had was interrupted. So we were left with the decision. We had to move it into a mobile-only environment. It's not ideal because of the data costs. So we provided stipends for the students to cover data costs, and we designed mobile-only type activities to continue with the learning. So the role of the digital is clear, but it's wildly uneven, especially for these disadvantaged populations who may or may not have access even to a simple phone, any kind of phone. So in some cases, there was some purchase necessary for those students who didn't have that. And the lessons have been quite dramatic, I think, ultimately. We designed this, and then the interruptions of the pandemic affected us all, but in particular affected this population. But they just took the entrance examination last week to enter into university. So fingers crossed they all pass. The implications for that project on educational design, including what you're doing today, is why not provide psychosocial support for everyone? Why not put an emphasis on mental health and support and care at the heart of everything we're doing educationally? Some people think when we go into the digital, it's suddenly this new thing that you don't suddenly becomes unhuman. And that doesn't have to be the case. You can design in these things. Expect interruptions and you'll never be disappointed. So you have to account for this uneven access, uneven ownership, uneven use, and then all the interruptions that will naturally come as a result of just life being life. So you have to account for those things in your design. Peel back the layers of divide one by one. You have agency in this process. Don't believe for a second that you don't have agency in what you're doing here today. Ultimately, the question is, what futures are you trying to enact? Okay, we're projecting out into the future. What are we trying to do here? Now, the second case, which I'll just burn through real quickly here, is if we can't imagine a better future, that's a failure of imagination. That's not necessarily that the issue or the problem is so insurmountable. It just means it's a failure of imagination. We have an opportunity to be a little bit more creative about how we approach this. The idea of the future as a singular, inevitable trajectory in the face of which educators and citizens have no agency is subject to critique. I think that's very important to remember. You have agency in this process. It's not inevitable what's happening. It doesn't have to be inevitable. We can work towards creating something better. So this project was a project I worked on for a couple of years. It was specific to the University of Edinburgh from 2017 to 19. And the idea was to co-design a values-based future for digital education, not to respond to what technology is providing us, but rather to have our own affirmative statement of what we want the future to be. It was participatory, community-led, and engaged with about 400 people at the university, students, staff, faculty, alumni, etc. And it was trying to do a few different things. Number one, what is our preferred future for digital education? That was the biggest goal. It was like, what do we want our future to be at the university? So what values do we want to shape this future? That's important. The values part is very important. What are the global trends which are impacting on that? Things outside our control. And what are our aims and objectives, and what actions will enable us to get there? This is kind of what you're doing today. So it's similar, it's a very similar type project. So we created a large amount of, well, I should say, we created 2 short reports that were forecasting what the future might be based on the research. And those are available, they're freely available online, all the materials are available. The Science and Technology, Education and Society, we wrote this in 2000, I believe, 17. So this is pre-pandemic. We were unable to predict the pandemic, obviously, caught a lot of people by surprise, but a lot of the other parts have remained relatively true. We also, at the same time, collected, as I mentioned, collecting 400 people we talked to, and we distilled all of that into themes, what they were telling us about the future. These themes are, for example, humans, too much tech, community, automation, all of these topics that are important to people, they were free to talk about. And we coded that, we created themes, and those themes became videos. Those videos are all available as well. Values became a very important theme in all of that. And again, the values driving all of this, you have experience over assessment, diversity and justice, relationships first, participation and flexibility. These were the values specific to the University of Edinburgh. They might be similar to your context as well, but this is us distilling this from the data. We then workshopped this for a long period of time with participatory methods and had everybody contribute across the university. I even went to schools, and I was in primary schools and secondary schools because these are the future students. So what are their thoughts about what the future could be? And eventually we distilled all of that down into these 6 things that will form the basis of every activity we do at the university around digital education. Number 1, all digital education has to be community focused. It has to be post-digital. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry. It's not that important. It has to be data fluent. So data is one of the critical digital education issues of our day. It has to be playful and experimental. We believe in education as an experimental exercise. It's not as programmatic as many think it to be. And assessment-oriented, meaningful assessment. So it's important to rethink assessments, how we understand learning has taken place. And boundary challenging. So it should be transdisciplinary. It should work across subject matters. It should be trying to pull these things together. Why is this important? This is I'm sort of winding this up here. So why is this important? Well, in terms of the refugee and displaced persons conversation, this is not going away. And in fact, it's escalating quite dramatically in recent events. You know, obviously, clearly, this graphic ends at 2019. But we can expect this number to increase relatively dramatically due to political instability, due to the Afghanistan situation, et cetera. A lot of this is changing and will change, but the general trend is definitely going up. These people need our assistance. They need our help, right? So how do we incorporate them into their host societies? How do we allow them to have agency in defining their own future? So that's important. This is a group of 80 million people that are waiting for us to do something. Why is it important? In terms of gender, again, I'm just returning to this. This is important. The digital isn't always a space of gender parity. And in fact, it's quite the opposite in many cases too. Women do not enjoy the same level of access to technology the world over. And now this is different in different countries. There's a lot of regional perspectives here. and a lot of social norms informing that. But ultimately, how do you design digital education that has gender parity or allows for basically all groups to participate in an inclusive way? That's important. Questions to carry forward, and I'm going to close with this, I think. Questions to carry forward. Ultimately, remembering you have agency here, but what is your preferred future in all of this? Remember, we're not predicting the future. We're designing our preferred future amidst all the futures available to us. What values drive this activity for you? So you define the values that need to be a part of any digital education solution that we carry forward. And how are you ensuring that disadvantaged groups are included overall? That should be at the forefront of what you're trying to do. And remember, disadvantage can be rendered locally, internationally, regionally, rural, urban divides, any number of divides. It's up to you to define what the disadvantaged groups are and then design digital education for them. So I will conclude there if that's okay. And I hand it back to whoever wants to take over now.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that presentation. We do have some time right now for any questions, especially the students who are going to be engaging with the workshop in the second half. And online participants can always speak out or type in the chat.
Hello, Michael. I heard that you're working with refugees in Uganda and some other regions. And if I understood well, were you guys providing them like education face to face, or using technology to provide them education?
No, it's a good question. I think you were asking about is it a face to face kind of education? And yes, it is. It's I should say it's a blended model, which means there are parts of it that are informed by being online, but there's dedicated tutors on site in each location, and they're teaching this largely face-to-face. That became really problematic, obviously, with the lockdown. Uganda went on lockdown, I think in like May or June of this year, and they have yet to come out of it. So it was a complete lockdown as well, which means no public gatherings of any sort, no schools, no nothing. So that became problematic, and a lot of it shifted online at that point. But before that, it was being taught in a face-to-face fashion.
Cool. We also have a question from the chat saying, how can we minimize the gender disparity, being still an area that is topical, but requiring lots of attention?
Yeah, I would agree. It's a difficult one because you are overcoming the social norms of the area where maybe that gender parity is not being addressed just even in the offline space. But there are things to be done. For example, you would target women specifically. You would co-design with women. You would do participatory methods to have them involved from the design all the way through to the execution. It does make it much, how do we say, it makes it much a longer process than it would be just to design some technology and provide that to people. But designing specifically for women, I don't mean just technology, I mean the entire program, how they learn, how they interact, how they feel comfortable interacting, and understanding the contributors to that lack of gender parity. So in many cases where I work, the idea of being online brings with it safety concerns, harassment and bullying, and these sorts of things that are very, very important to groups, bringing groups into the online space. So my advice to that, if we're seriously trying to address this, is to design specifically for women. That should be a target group that you're designing specifically for and with. Like, you have to work with them very closely to understand what they want from this, because it might not be the same as the men. There's a good organization that works a lot in this space. It's called the Alliance for Affordable Internet, A4AI, and they do a lot of great work with overcoming that gender digital divide. So, but thanks, that's a good question, Martin.
Thank you for the questions. And just a reminder, we do have a longer Q&A after all the presentations. So right now, I think we can transition on to the second presentation. Next, we have Gabriella Russell, who is a project officer at ALL Digital. Gabriella is an expert in EU project management and policy advocacy. Since 2014, she has managed projects on digital skills, education and training, employability, media literacy, youth participation in the ALL Digital group. Now she'll be representing the NGO ICT for Elderly. Over to you, Gabriella.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction and of course for the invitation. It's a real honor to be able to speak to such a young audience on such a, let's say, unusual topic and unusual target group for the young. Yes, so I'm Gabriella and I work for ALL Digital. Actually, ICT for the Elderly, it's one of our projects. ALL Digital is a network of training centers, of digital competence centers, what we call them, all around Europe. So we have a European focus, providing access to computers and the internet and trainings related to digital skills. That we cover the whole spectrum of digital skills, from very basic ones, such as how to use the computer, how to turn it on, how to create an email, to more advanced, even in ICT careers sector. And we have members, so we are member-based. This digital competence center, they are spread all around Europe, and they are working with different target groups. Most of these target groups are vulnerable or underprivileged. Many of our members work also with refugees and asylum seekers. But today I'm here to talk about another underprivileged group in terms of digital education and digital inclusion. And these are the older adults in our society. So why, you might ask, are older adults underprivileged? Well, older adults are no longer in education, and therefore they have no way of learning new skills. And you can imagine that what they learn at school is no longer very useful for them. They face multiple disadvantages with regards to the digital world. Michael has already touched upon many of those issues. They are twice as likely to be victims of cybercrime than young people. They are usually living in remote areas or villages, even without broadband coverage. They are more likely to live in isolation, and they are more likely to be afraid of technology. And I've heard many times older people saying that they just don't want to touch the computer or the tablet because they are afraid of breaking it. And I'm sure that many of you here today have a grandparent that is in this situation or has been in this situation, and you can relate to this. And they are more likely to not be able to pay for a computer and the internet because of their low income. So, and last but not least, older adults do not actually possess the skills, as I said in the beginning. They didn't learn this at school, to manage digital technology. So that's why they're facing multiple disadvantages in this sense. Why is it important that we care for them? Why is it important that we improve older people's digital skills? Well, of course, young people are a very important target group, but older people are as well, because there is currently very exponential growth of older people in Europe, and between 2015 and 2050, the proportion of the world population will more than double. Basically in 2020, so last year, there was 1/5 of the population in Europe who was aged 65 and plus. So there is a lot of older people. A few more statistics just to underline the importance of this part of the population. The people aged over 60 years outnumber the children younger than 5 years. And the pace of population aging is much faster than it was ever in the past. And it is fastest in the developed countries. As I said, our network has a European coverage. So we are focusing mostly on European countries. And this increasing the aging population is due overall to two factors, let's say. One is the declining fertility, so aging from the bottom, basically less babies being born. And the other one is the longer life expectancy, which is the aging from the top. It means that older people live even longer than before. Yeah, well, digital skills are needed for almost everything, for doing almost everything in today's life. So yes, it's important that we improve older people's digital skills because they need them for checking in for a flight, for getting involved in interest groups, for booking an appointment with a doctor, for online banking, for booking a trip, for real-time information about the weather, for online shopping, for keeping in touch with their family, and for checking, for example, the bus timetable. So basically for staying active, for having an active aging, and for their well-being, they need digital skills. It's inevitable. Here, sharing some information about the use of different most popular online platforms by age, and you can notice immediately that people of 65 plus have a very low share of the users of these platforms. So by improving digital skills of older people, as I mentioned, it's a way of improving their quality of life overall, because this gives them the opportunity to stay active, to be involved even in education, in lifelong learning, in social participation, in participating in their community, in hobbies like signing up for the gym or for a yoga class, anything. Everything is done online now. They have more freedom of choice and decisions because they can find more information online. They are longer involved in the job market, which improves society's productivity. They are more involved in community activities, and they can even form or initiate their own interest groups. And this improves their mental health. It keeps their mind fresh, and it keeps them active and facilitates overall their participation in society, and especially importantly, their independence and autonomy. So as this is an important issue, there are few policies supporting older adults at the European level that I'm just going to briefly mention because they are not so relevant for this exercise that you're going to do afterwards, for this practical exercise for finding solutions. But anyway, it is very useful in my view to be aware of the policy landscape and what the public institutions are trying to do in order to support support older people. At the European level, there are a few ongoing initiatives. One of them is the Green Paper on Aging. So in the European Union, you have green papers, which are basically documents which the European Commission prepares in order to initiate discussion and to collect feedback from different stakeholders, and white papers, which is the next level, which are then specific actions and policies that the Commission proposes based on the discussion that has been initiated and collected during the Green Paper. So in this case, they've just earlier this year, they've launched this Green Paper, and there was a discussion in spring, in April and May, about how to foster solidarity and responsibility between generations, and how to improve policies targeted at older adults. And now they are in the process of analyzing and processing all the input that they received from different people and organizations. On the digital side, on the digital education side, there is the Digital Education Action Plan. But in fact, this plan does not really target, there is no specific action foreseen in it for older people. So actually, a specific digital education plan should be written for older people. And there is a gap there, actually, to address this target group. There is also European Agenda for Adult Learning. So for, let's say, increasing the number of adults who participate in adult learning. And there is a specific goal to increase the share of adults in working age who participate in the last 12 months in adult learning, so meaning in different kind of courses, to improve their skills to 47% by 2025. And just for your information, now this percentage is around a bit more than 10%, 11%. So there is a huge gap there as well. And as you see, it's talking about people up to 64. It's not even considering adults older than 65 years. So this is just to say that it's not considered that there are no actions foreseen to improve the chances and opportunities for this part of the society to learn and to improve their skills. And to go back to what I'm here for today, to present you one possible solution. The ICT for the Elderly project. This project is about providing a training opportunity for older adults to learn about digital technology, about the internet, to acquire new digital skills, but also to then go back to their community and teach their peers, so teach other older people these skills. Why this peer-to-peer approach? It's because older people are more likely to trust a peer and less likely to be afraid to show that they don't know how to do this. And I like very much this quote from Philip Seidel from the Age Platform. The Age Platform is an organization at the European level caring about older people. He said that peer-to-peer learning is very important because in the end, it's about interacting and about empowering. And if you empower people to actually empower others, that's even more empowering. So that's why the ICT for the Elderly focuses on this peer-to-peer approach. So what are the main principles of the training? The older people participate in the selection of topics. So there is a menu, let's say, of topics. I will show them in the next slide. And the older people can say which ones of those topics are most relevant and most needed and most interesting for them to learn about. They are also active contributors to the online academy, so to this training. With contents, and they act, as I said, as ambassadors for other elderly people. These are the topics, this menu, this list of modules, what they are called, training modules, across 6 areas or thematic areas. I'm not going to read through them, but you can see that they are all different kind of aspects of digital technology and operation done online through e-banking, e-taxes, to online safety and security and privacy, and online citizenship and participation and communication. So we have really tried to develop a training which is all encompassing. And as I said, the elderly people are also able to choose and to participate in the co-design of these online modules. This is the project timeline. So this is the story of the project. We started back in 2018 and 2019 with the best practices collection. So what we try to do is to collect different resources and trainings targeting older adults, so targeting our group, so that not to reinvent the wheel and rediscover the hot water. Then based on these resources that we collected, we designed this online academy and training program. And then in the beginning of 2020, we recruited the participants and prepared the training, and everybody was ready to go to the international training, which was planned for March and April in 2 European cities, in Malta and in Berlin in Germany. But unfortunately, at that time, COVID-19 kicked in, and as we have heard already, it impacted different kind of training activities all over the world. So people were locked in, and they couldn't attend. They couldn't travel to the international workshops. So we had to quickly rearrange and rethink our approach, and national partners did national workshops during the whole period between the summer 2020 and summer 2021. And finally, because this international aspect of bringing people together from different countries was so important for us, we finally managed to have at least one international workshop in September this year. And these were the selected topics for the international training. And you can see here older people from 4 different countries from Europe attending this training and watching a video about a new humanoid robot. Most valued aspect of this project was actually this international training, because what we heard from the older people, what they liked most or what they appreciated most was about this interaction and contact with people also from other countries, and sharing how things are done in the other countries, and what elderly people, what kind of initiatives they have, and to inspire each other and to learn from each other. I think I'm running a bit out of time. So yeah, just to finish my presentation, I would like to let you know that actually very soon, on the 17th of November, we are organizing the final event, online event of this project, where we will tell more about the results, about the lessons learned, about the experience. So if any of the participants is interested in attending this event, it's online, it's for free. You can attend it from anywhere, and you can register by scanning the QR code on the slide, or you can get in touch with me by email, or visit the project website, ictfortheelderly.com, to learn about the project and the event. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer to any question that you might have.
Thank you, Gabriella. Once again, we are open to any questions from the audience or online.
Yeah, I have a question. I hope you can hear me, Gabriella.
Yep, more or less.
Do you also notice a gender disparity at your events? Like, is it that elderly women are more likely to engage than elderly men, or is it fairly equal?
Well, in fact, if you're asking about the project, I haven't yet seen the statistics, but I think that we're slightly more, the women are outnumbered by the men, but not significantly. In terms of general statistics about the activities that our members are doing, the all digital members, I mean, I would say that there is even more women participating in training courses than men. But then again, these services or these courses that our members provide, they are really targeted, they are really low threshold, they are really community based. So in this sense, there are less barriers also for women to join these courses, and there are many organizations who actually have specific trainings for women. So overall in the network, I think that there are even more women participating in courses than men. I hope I've answered the question.
We also have a comment that I'll read out loud for the people who are in person. It is now recognized that older workers are still worth employing and have a lot to offer. Thus, upskilling in digital competence is very valuable for the labor market as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this comment. And yes, we fully agree. I didn't touch much upon this labor market inclusion topic, but yes, there is some statistics and some reports about the value of upskilling older people, even the economic value and the economic cost of not making sure that they have the relevant skills, and it's a big cost. So yeah, I fully in line with this comment.
Hello, Gabrielle, I have a question. So can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering, why do you think older people struggle to adapt to technology? And do you think, is there a problem that we have right now and in our future generation we won't have, or do you think there'll be a problem they're going to see in future generations too?
Okay, so if I understood correctly, the question was why older people have problems in adapting to digital technology, and if in the future older people will still have those problems.
Yes.
Yes. Well, this is a very good, but very also very difficult and very broad question that has many different aspects. Of course, there is the difference between digital natives and digital migrants, what we call. So people who are digital natives are people who are born in the context of digital technology already being ubiquitous, etc. And digital migrants are those who had to learn throughout their life to use this technology. For sure, this is one aspect, but on the other hand, being a digital native does not guarantee that you are actually capable of using this technology to your benefit, that you are able of actually, let's say, using technology for making your life better and easier. Yeah, you may be able to, it may be more intuitive for you to use technology to post on social media or to browse through YouTube videos, but it doesn't mean that you can use digital productivity tools, that you can use digital technologies to create, to innovate, etc. This is still something to be learned. It's not something that comes is not by default. So I would say that yes, in the future, in my opinion, older people will still have to learn, and everybody will still have to learn in a lifelong perspective because of this, and also because digital technology is constantly evolving. So what we know today as digital technology, in 50 years, it will be completely different.
Thank you for all the questions and comments. They're all super interesting. And
Thank you very much.
Really, yeah, I think this is really interesting to explore the concepts of lifelong learning through digital technology. So moving on, I would like to introduce Bohut Singh, who is a project officer as well from All Digital. Bohut also worked with the Slovene National Agency for Erasmus Youth in Action and European Solidarity Corps and National Youth Council of Slovenia. Now he'll be showcasing the next NGO project, Social Academy. Thank you, Bohut.
Thank you very much, Zini. Thank you for the invitation and kind introduction. I'll be talking about Social Academy project, which is also run by All Digital. And the main aim is of the project was to close the gap between social and digital innovation, but to do that through empowering young people with different digital skills and competences, and to involve them, put them in the center of co-creation process that actually addresses different societal challenges on local, regional, national, or European level, and develop digital solutions for these problems in collaboration with different stakeholders. But before we dive into the project, I want to stop for a moment and talk about social inclusion of young people and digital skills. There are several EU policy initiatives highlighting that fostering digital skills of young people is key to their social inclusion. And when we speak about the inclusion, this means that we create equal chances, equitable opportunities of access for everyone. And this should be achieved by addressing the barriers, the exclusion factors that our target groups, in this case, young people, may face in accessing such opportunities within Europe and beyond. Just to highlight and showcase a bit of these circumstances that we need to bridge over and remove the obstacles for equal participation. We have many official reports from UNESCO, PISA, NEST reports, and so on and so forth that show that child poverty has increased and children are often poorer than adults, especially migrant children and children of single-parent families. So these are all obstacles that young people face when going through different phases coming from childhood to the adulthood, right? Through the education where they are equipped with essential, specific and transversal skills to enter the labor market. Entering the labor market is then the second stage, dealing with their housing problems, creating their family. So these are all stages leading to adulthood. And these kind of circumstances and barriers affect their transition through it. According to the Education and Training Monitor, 1/5 of foreign-born youngsters are early school leavers, right? This all again impacts their access to acquiring specific or transversal skills that are much needed for equal participation in modern society. Their counterparts, native-born counterparts, represent only 10% of the early school leavers, right? Families with children with disabilities or special needs have twofold increased risk of poverty compared to families with children without disabilities, which again creates another barrier that these young people are faced with later on in their adulthood. And children from socially disadvantaged groups achieve significantly less educational success than children from middle and upper class. Again, another barrier. So, I mean, this explains altogether why the reduction of social inequality, right? Why social inclusion is so much important, and why it is a central goal of EU education policy to give equal chances to all young people in terms of education, and this then sets the tone for the transitions and everything they do later in life. And the social participation, meaning also being active citizens contributing to the society, is closely linked to their access to information and computer technology, and how they are able to acquire the necessary digital competences to be on equal par with all the other citizens living in the society. But when we speak, like now I showcase through a few examples, when we speak about these obstacles, these exclusion factors that define how much access they have, or what kind of obstacles they need to overcome, there are many, and they are addressed through different terms. You used the expression underprivileged groups or underprivileged young people in this case. We also hear about disadvantaged young people, and there is also expression of young people with fewer opportunities. Since the Social Academy project is financed through Erasmus Plus program, we also followed their definitions and how they define these fewer opportunities, obstacles, and exclusion factors. The Erasmus Plus program defines 8 groups of young people with fewer opportunities based on exclusion factors that they face. The first group of exclusion factors are disabilities. Here we talk about physical, mental, and sensory impairments, and they affect, of course, the access and equal chances. The second group of exclusion factors present health problems. These are severe illnesses, chronic diseases, or other physical or mental health-related situations. Next group are various links to education and training systems. Here we speak about, we find individuals that struggle to perform in schools or in any educational system, those that are early leavers from education, and NETs. These are young people that are not in education, employment, or training. So they are outside of all the system that, that enable them to transition through life and to participate in the society on equal footing. The fourth group are cultural barriers, cultural exclusion factors. These are in this case young people that have migrant or refugee background, representatives of ethnic and national minorities, sign language users, and similar. So these also face a range of barriers. The fifth group are the social barriers, which means that people have limited social competences, maybe high-risk behaviors connected also to drug and alcohol abuse. Their family circumstances represent a barrier for them. For instance, they live with foster parents, or they are a family from a single parent, and this all influences, again, their equal access. Then there are, of course, the economic barriers, which are related to low income, low standard of living, dependence on the welfare system. And we have barriers linked to discrimination, which are barriers occurs as a result of discrimination based on gender, religion, sexual orientation, basically any personal circumstance that people encounter. And there are geographical barriers, also mentioned quite a few times today. So living in remote and rural areas, peripheral areas also constitute the barriers. And why is this so important? Because when we speak about underprivileged young people with fewer opportunities, they usually don't only have one type of barriers, but they have this intersection of barriers that we need to address them. And why we need to know them? Because according to the barriers, because if we know the barriers and we know how to identify, we also know how to develop curricula, how to develop pedagogical methodologies, and how to develop the overall approach to digital education or teaching young people digital skills. So this is like the macro level. This project was implemented in 4 countries: in Italy, Greece, Croatia, and France. So before, when we were preparing the project, we of course dived into the situation in these countries and what are the most pressing issues young people have, and these are basically the starting points from where we began planning on which young people we want to reach and how to reach them. So Italy has a big problem with youth unemployment. So all these data are from 2018, but due to COVID, the situation has worsened. If maybe just it stayed the same, but it actually didn't improve. So Italy has a big problem with youth unemployment rate reaching over 40%. Young people at risk of social exclusion present 1/3 of all young people, and out of these, 1/4 are actually nets. According to our partner, deducted that the strong lack of digital skills also influenced a lot the access to labor market. It made it, and it makes it more difficult even today. And in the Umbria region, where our project was implemented, they also identified as one of the main objectives of the educational policy also the acquisition of digital skills. So all of these kind of rounded up the situation in Italy. Quite similar is in Greece, very high unemployment rates among young people, again with a big population of nets. In addition, then Greece was and still quite is very low on a DESI index. This is Digital Economy and Society Index that measures the digital skills and of European citizens across the EU. So in Greece, only 46% have basic level of digital skills. Of course, among young people, the situation is a bit better, but as also Gabriella mentioned, being digital native doesn't mean you have digital skills necessary to function in a society. And this also creates several digital skills gap that we wanted to also address with the project. Then similarly in Croatia, the youth unemployment is a bit lower, 27%, but Croatia faces another problem, a brain drain due to migration of skilled people to other countries where the economic conditions and life conditions are much better than in Croatia. This means that the Croatia is left with low-skilled people, a lot of times also impacted by long-term unemployment that needs to be upskilled or reskilled and reintegrated in the society. And the part of this group are also young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And they need digital skills, competences to re-enter the market. But we also need to develop more inclusive educational approaches based on collaboration, co-creation to facilitate that. And in this sense, multi-sectoral partnerships between formal and non-formal education sectors are needed to address this issue in the best possible way. In France, there's almost 2 million people, young people between 16 and 25 that are also nets out of training and employment system. They are low or not qualified, and also then, as you can see, connected to their geographical location, living in suburban and rural disadvantaged areas where there are not so many digital opportunities or opportunities to learn digital skills. The unemployment rate is similar to was similar to Croatian, around 27%, and they also refer to digital skills gap, where they identified that when basically 1/5 of young people are not autonomous in the digital use, which is an obstacle for them in the professional integration and also access to public services and exercising of citizenship, being active citizens. What are the solutions? Well, as much as we would like to have sort of a magic wand and that would enable us to solve the problems with 1, 2, 3, or 4 different approaches, it is not like that. So what we did with Hakat is to target very specific group. Yeah, sorry, I lost the thought there. So we wanted to empower young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, where we mostly focused on young people that are long-term unemployed or needs, and those with migrant background. This was a decision made also based on the outreach that our partners and our associations on grassroots level have, because when you create a goal and objective to enhance digital skills of certain group of disadvantaged group of young people, you also need to know how you will reach them and how you will work with them. So just as a very plain example, our associations are not equipped to work with young people with health problems and disabilities, and because we don't have the capacity in this project to build those competencies on our end, we needed to focus on specific groups of young people in the big group of young people with fewer opportunities or underprivileged young people. And also the other specific objective that we have is to improve trainers' capacity to foster and teach digital skills of young people, not only at risk of social and digital exclusion, but all young people in general. So we have two aspects in the project. So one, directly addressing young people, and the other, increasing the capacity of trainers. Yeah, just a quick note here. As trainers, we mean educators in non-formal education system. So basically, these are not teachers, but people that have pedagogical skills, but use non-formal education methodologies to teach. So our approach was to make young people not only the consumers and not just give them digital skills to consume and be a part, but also to make them agents of change also, but in terms of them being able to produce digital content instead of just consuming it. The other important part of the approach was also to foster 21st century competences that goes beyond the digital skills. So we are talking about also the soft skills that goes hand in hand with digital skills, like teamwork, collaboration, critical thinking, and so on and so forth. And we decided to do this by forming a multidisciplinary teams that surrounded and supported young people and work with them in enhancing digital skills and also developing digital solutions for real problem in the societies. If we quickly go through what we did, so social academy methodology is based on a good practice. So the whole project was meant to upscale the methodology used in a very specific region and make it transferable to different countries, to different local contexts, and also to different educational contexts. This methodology can be used in informal and formal, non-formal and formal educational systems. For us to be able to do that, we had to take apart the good practice and build it back together by developing specific digital skills courses and formalizing the methodology through a step-by-step guide that enables anyone taking our training notebooks for trainers and similar to be able to implement it. In the second part, we addressed the enhancing of skills of educators. So we organized a training of trainers in social academy methodology. So we empowered 16 trainers from the forementioned countries. So they were not only in the methodology, but also in how to work with young people with fewer opportunities, addressing their pedagogical approach, addressing how they communicate with them, how they develop tasks with them, how to include them in the development of the curricula, as this is also a very important part of non-formal education, just providing the whole package for them to be able to implement the methodology. So we have the formal part ready, we have all the instructions, we have the trainers ready, and then we establish the social academy labs. Social academy labs are umbrella structure that combine two types of activities. One are the training courses for young people, and then the other are social hackathons. We opted to offer three types of training courses on digital skills for young people, and these are web design, visual and graphic design, and native mobile app development. We opted for these specific three courses because based on the evaluation and analysis of the good practice, these skills had come the most in handy when creating digital solutions for problems in society. And these are the training courses in length of 100 hours. They were supposed to be implemented as blended courses, but due to COVID, we had to move everything online. So we trained more than 120 young people from in these 4 countries. Most of them were at risk of exclusion because of being either early school leavers or NETs, or coming from low income and low standard of living backgrounds. And then after they completed the training courses and they gained these new digital skills, we teamed them up with experts coming from civil society organizations. And they work together with these experts in teams at social hackathons. So, you know, the hackathons, basically the coding and solving challenges by developing different digital solutions. Well, the social hackathons is similar, but with 2 important differences. One is that all young people were welcome, no matter their level of digital skills, and the gap between maybe the skills and the competences needed to develop a specific solution was bridged by teaming them up with experts from ICT technology and experts from associations that were dealing with different problems. Just an example of a solution that young people were working on in Croatia at Social Hackathon. There was an association working with people that have mental health related situations, and they wanted to create they wanted to have an app to with which what's the proper expression, the people they're working with could monitor their everyday behavior and what caused it. So a team of 2 young girls teamed up with psychologists on one hand and with programmers on the other to create an app that enables that. And we had altogether more than 25 different solutions being produced, and these solutions were actually produced based on the challenges provided to us by civil society organizations. So this is a part of this co-creation system, and this is a part of where we put young people in the center of it and enable them to use the digital skills acquired priorly in the training on solving concrete problems. This meant we provided them with 2 very significant opportunities. One is the learning opportunity, and then actually using the newly gained skills in real life situations. And the second is connecting them and enabling them to network with different associations where they could possibly continue collaborating with them even after they complete their participation in these project activities, in the activities of the social academy labs. And in more than a bit more than 1/3 of cases, this actually happened. That the young people that got teamed up with different associations still remained active after completion of the social hackathon, social academy labs. And these will also enhance their chances when entering the labor market, because they will have some proof of what they have done and what kind of capabilities they have. In terms of transferring this practice to other contexts, we created 4 deliverables that anybody can use. So we have the course outlines with the curricula and the session plans for anybody to take and use and implement them in their their own context. We have the handbook for trainers that helps the trainers deliver these courses, but also to organize the social hackathons. We also developed a specific platform that supports the courses implementation and the social hackathons implementation by it acts a bit as a social network, enabling creation of groups, showcasing of developed solutions. There's a repository of different training materials and so on and so forth. And we have a step-by-step social academy methodology guide that kind of wraps it up all together that I was talking about. Here you can see a few of the examples of from the social hackathons, basically the national winners. In Italy, they were creating a mobile app to raise awareness by showing local and social economic issues in developing countries. The team from Greece created an app that helps to reduce environmental problems caused by weeds destroying the local flora. Basically, you can scan it and then send you can pinpoint on the map, take a photo of invasive plants and send it to a local NGO that deals with this. There was a team, Feminist Surge, who won the French social hackathon that created a website to support victims of violence and other social exclusion situations in Montpellier. And the team from Croatia that I already mentioned that created a map to track different mental difficulties. I would also like to invite you if this presentation sparked interest about the methodology to an event that we have in December, where we present recommendations how to implement the methodology in different contexts. So if you're interested, please do join us on 7th of September. And these are our partners who worked hard in the last 2 years to develop all this to develop the methodology and pilot test it in their own countries. And this is our website. And thank you very much. I stop at this point. I think I was a bit too long, so sorry, but available for any questions.
Hi, Bo. Thanks for your talk. I have one question. I recently worked with an orphanage, and I didn't see orphans on your list of the age groups that you mentioned. Did you ever think of working with an orphanage, doing social academies with orphanages as well?
We didn't specifically identify them, but yeah, that could be. I mean, it's completely possible to implement it in orphanages. The thing is that our partners have limited capacities to work with very specific groups of young people. And in this case, they also work with in the local context where they already have established the networks and have implemented the projects prior to this one. So they kind of use the same network there. So yeah, direct answer would be no, we didn't even think about it, but yes, the methodology is completely applicable to also to orphanages.
Pozdravljeni, gospod Borucink. I have a question. Is there any specific reason why France, Greece, Croatia, and Italy were chosen for this research?
Gabriele? No, this was based on the expertise from our partners. So we were looking for partners that that work with young people, because not all of our members in the network work with young people. So Italy was chosen because the best practice was from there. So we took the best practice from igital from Italy that we wanted to upscale. Simploni is an organization in France that works a lot with nets and early school leavers to empower them to enter the labor market. Similar goes for Croatian partner CTC Rijeka, who works with underprivileged young people in Istria, and the Greek partner was brought on board because of their expertise with developing online platforms and online curricula. It's a Hellenic Open University. It's an open university that works on distant and blended learning, that has a lot of expertise on that. So that is why we brought them on board. And the fifth partner, which is Public Libraries 2030, is a partner that supports the dissemination on European level together with us. So we wanted to create a complementary partnership, not only considering just the youth as the target group, but also the trainers and the expertise needed to develop the methodology and the tools to implement it.
Hello, if you were to expand, to which countries do you think you'd go first?
This is a good question, tough question. I guess the countries where there's a high rate of nets and early school leavers and high unemployment rate, because what the evaluation of the piloting has shown, that the young people really gained additional skills. They also gained motivation to further engage in educational activities, which is especially important for early school leavers or nets. And this was especially reported from France. They also gained good context, and some actually gained employment opportunities after being part of this program. So I would go for the countries with high unemployment rate, just because the methodology proved beneficial for this kind of situations. But other than that, going also considering the co-creation aspect and putting young people in the center of it, and supporting them to become actors of change, this is something that could or should be, or it would be nice to be used and implemented in all the European countries, or globally speaking.
We also have an online question here. How can we encourage particularly underprivileged young people to become producers of digital content and thus potential entrepreneurs?
It's a several, it's also a very good question, and it has several aspects to it. One is, first you need to be able to reach out to these specific target groups, right? You need to figure out who you can and who you can't reach, and then how to make them the actors of change. In the middle, you create the process around them. So you enable them to shape the process, and you put them in a position of an equal partner with everybody else. When we speak everybody else, we mean the trainers, the educators, we mean the associations that were looking for different digital solutions to social problems. So basically empower them with skills, and then put them in the situation where they can use these skills on equal footing with everyone. So this really boosts their motivation. This boosts their capability to do something, but also it boosts their motivation and confidence to engage in such activities. So when working with young people with fewer opportunities, a lot of times it's not only about the digital skills, about the digital education, but it's also addressing this specific consequences of the situations where they are in, and in this sense, motivating them, increasing their confidence, and just supporting them throughout the whole process, making them aware that what they are capable of delivering this is also super important. So it always goes kind of hand in hand, right? It's not only just the skills, it's also the soft skills, it's also the different just not to repeat myself, but it's a whole pedagogical process that kind of asks from anybody who's doing it multifaceted approach that doesn't focus only on skills.
These are all great questions. And thank you everyone for asking them. I think we can all move on to our final presentation. And of course, if you have any questions, we can leave it to the very end. So last but not least, we have AILEM, an app project that is currently led by all Atlantic College students, Abu Bakr Michael, Zach Athar, Alicia Alonso, and myself included. This is a recent initiative started this spring with the support of Lighthouse. AILEM is also one of the recipients for the inaugural Lighthouse Prize. So let's welcome AILEM.
And this is our presentation.
Yeah, so my name is Abu Bakr and I'm from Afghanistan. So go ahead with your introduction.
Yeah, I'm Lucia, I'm from Spain and Venezuela.
I'm Zach and I'm from Yemen.
So basically our project ALEM is tailored and targeted to focus on a very particular group of people, which is refugees, and also everyone who wants to learn a language, and also while learning a language, learn different cultures. You can find out more about it and how it works during the presentation. Yeah.
So what are structural and societal challenges? Like, what are the biggest challenges? Like, refugees face a multitude of challenges in their everyday life. And one of these challenges is the lack of access to like basic needs and their human rights in their everyday life. And this is all because of the marginalization that they face in society.
And also, for example, if you are a refugee in a certain country and you don't speak the language, you don't know where to go and seek for help, and you are left all on your own to find your way, you know. And for example, if you go to a certain office to fill out some documents, you don't know how to fill them out and how to ask for help. So that's like one of the challenges in the society. India is like less resources available for them to get adapted.
Yeah. So what is the main problem with the all application? The main problem is that the refugees do not have this education to break the barriers of language and communication, because like communication like represents the biggest barriers for those people to access their needs. And basically, according to the United Nations, I think that like only 24% of refugee adolescents worldwide are able to access their education, compared to 82% globally. So you can see like a really huge gap between these two. So what is ALEM? So basically, ALEM stands for the coincidence of like family and education, because in Arabic, ALEM means knowledge, and in Turkish, it means like family.
And also, like it stands for like artificial intelligence to like, you know, lift and educate. So we seek to provide knowledge and education for the needs of refugees and asylum seekers to integrate better in the society and learn the culture and customs of their society. That's like our main goal. And what we want to achieve through the app, it will be achieved by learning the language of the society. Can you show next slide?
Yeah. So okay. So all-in-one education. So basically, our application covers like all the language, like all the aspects of learning a language, from grammar, writing to listening and writing, and with the use of artificial intelligence, the provision of the services will be facilitated. And also, because like those refugees really like struggle to integrate into society, we find that learning language is like a really catalyst for this change, for them to be able to integrate in the host society.
And also, like the way artificial intelligence will be used, it will help the users to, you know, pronounce words correctly. For example, it will show them how to articulate certain words, how to move their mouth muscles. And at the same time, it will ask the users to pronounce the word to the app, and based on that, the app will analyze their pronunciation and give them a score. And also, the app will provide them with different sounds and different accents of the same word. So it will be easier for the learner to learn the language. Did you move? Is it the mic? Oh my god. Can you put it up there somewhere? No,
Okay, let's start in the beginning. At some point, we have all tried to learn a new language. Like, who didn't have the curiosity to learn a new language? I'm pretty sure everyone in this room has tried to learn that like at some point in their life. And basically, this is just to emphasize the fact that ALEM is tailored for the refugees, but that doesn't mean that it's limited to them. Like everyone also like has a place in this application to learn a new language.
So the way this app will work, like, you know, it will, if you go into a new society, new country, you know, you just need to learn the basic skills of life. You might not necessarily want to learn, you know, that you, I don't know, the like you might not necessarily want to learn you're taking your dog on a walk, but the phrase that how much does a certain item cost in a store will be very important for you. So based upon that, we did like several surveys with refugees and asylum seekers, and it allowed us to create a core curriculum for the app with all the important situations in which someone can find themselves in a new country. So that's why it's like a very new idea.
All right, so our vision, language education easily accessible for all. So basically, this is our picture from last year. We won the grant.
Yes, Valentina. And also, our ethos is like an app created by refugees for refugees. So basically, we said earlier, we like I'm myself a refugee. Zach is also a refugee. So I went through like this process of learning a language on my own in a country where I couldn't find help, and it's highly motivated me to to work with this project and create this project. And also the other effect is like we are working with a lot of other refugees from Jordan and some other countries, and also in Belgium. And we take feedback from them constantly in what should be included and what should not be included in the app, and also in the language learning process, because they are the people who should learn the language, in a very short period of time, and learn the very essential part of a language in order to keep their life going. So that's how they helped us to create the curriculum of our app. And this is our ethos, it's created by refugees for refugees.
Yeah, and like my refugee story began like I live in Yemen, and this is because of the war there. I had to move to Egypt, and you might say that they're both are like Arab countries. They share the same culture, the same language, but still I faced like a number of challenges, like given that Egypt has another dialect. It's only because difference in dialects, because I don't have the region-specific knowledge to be able to integrate society. I still face the challenges, and that made me like realize, what about the other refugees who go to foreign societies in Europe, in America, and other countries? And this is why like AILEM provides a region-specific knowledge for those countries to like contextualize this knowledge.
So throughout the development of the app, we went through a lot of trial and error. In the beginning, our app was very grammar content focused, so it was very dense, and we would teach people things about like conjugations and things like that, but we realized you don't necessarily need to know what a conjugation is in order to learn a language. So what we did is to change the whole curriculum in a way that's more interactive with users and is more useful in order to give them the context and the conversational phrases for refugees and asylum seekers, which are our target users, and to reintegrate into society.
And also like the way it was before, so the way it was before is like, here you can see there's just a lot of content in there, and just like make people frustrated to see all these texts, etc. And also like the way our current language learning system works is that, and especially with the apps and digital technology, we are forced to learn and memorize only words, which is not very fun. They just tell you like to click on this word and put it in the bracket, etc. That's how it works now. But the way our app is different is that it teaches the language by teaching you, by telling you stories. So there will be a story, and the content will be focused around the story. For example, before reading the story, can you move to the next slide? Can you move to the next slide? Okay. Here, for example, before reading a story, you just learn these vocabularies, you listen to their pronunciation. And then you go into the story, and then you click on this button and it will read the whole story to you. When you click on the next button, it will like give you the grammar explanation, of the text. Click again on this button, it will read the story to you, and then you finish. And then you get a summary of what you learned in the story, the grammar that you learned, new expressions. It will also provide you, the users, with a place, where they can practice the language and learn by flashcards. So there'll be pre-made flashcards for them to learn the language. So this is why it's different, that you before reading the stories, before reading the lines, you just have this vocabulary list. You see its meaning, and when you go into the story, there you see like what does it mean. It's kind of rewarding directly at the moment, and you understand the text, that you just read, and you like listen to its pronunciation.
Yeah, like the advantage to this approach is that not only you're learning new vocabulary, but you're learning in context. So and it's also a fun way in order to like learn a language, and still be able to use these words easier in your day-to-day life. So the process is you listen and you read the story, then you learn the words, and you listen and read again.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, we had user testing in AC, in the Lighthouse hub. Some of you might have gone to that. So what we did was we offered students the opportunity to access some of the chapters in the app that are already created, and we gathered their feedback in order to reintegrate into the app and improve the chapters and the curriculum inside of the app.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see like how refugees use the content of the app, how they approach it, and also like AC students, what was their feedback. It was very helpful to see like different people from different perspectives, different conditions.
Like the advantage of AC is that we all come from different backgrounds, and all these people, they all had different levels. Like, so we're teaching French, right? All these people had different levels in French. Some of them were ab initio students, some of them were B, STL or HL, and some of them were native speakers. So we could get all these different perspectives from all these different backgrounds and already known knowledge, and reintegrate into our app to make it better for refugees and asylum seekers. So another very interesting feature from our app is the AILEM map. So for context, most of our app is offline, which means that the users won't need an internet connection, they won't need Wi-Fi in order to access the curriculum. And what's interesting about the AILEM map is that here you have, as you can see in the video, you have a map with different buildings. You have the supermarket, you have the metro, you have the library, you have the hospital, you have the immigration office. And once you select one of the buildings, you can see different conversational phrases and vocabulary that you're gonna have to use when you attend this different institutions. So the advantage of this is that refugees don't have to wait to learn, unlike like other language learning apps, they don't have to wait and learn things that might not be relevant in the moment, things like, oh, I'm gonna walk my dog, or my wife is sleeping, and things like that. They can just directly learn the vocabulary that is necessary and urgent for them in order to access all their needs and all these buildings that they might have to go through on a daily basis.
Yeah, and also, for example, in most of the countries that refugees come from, there is no good transportation system, so they don't know how to use metro or bus, and how to ask, they don't even know how to ask questions. So that's why there are like some guiding phrases in the map. For example, when you are in the metro, you click on this and you go to the different sections, or if you're in supermarket, now all of a sudden you are stuck, you don't know how to ask, how much this cost, or where is certain product, so you just open the app and it gives you like all the list. So it's very handy for people who don't know the language of a certain region, and they are just right there. So it provides them with first, like it provides them with help in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, we also want to reiterate the fact that the app is free, and we're making it as accessible as possible, and that's why we have all these features offline, because we are aware that not everyone is able to have a Wi-Fi connection constantly, and that's why we implemented this aspect into the app.
And whenever they get connected into the internet, the content, if there is a change, they need to update it, but it's set on the device all the time, so they don't need internet connections.
Yeah, and also like, so the idea of our application is that we work under this whole assumption that those refugees have a mobile phone. Most of the refugees might not have a mobile phone. They would necessitate it. They would say that food is more necessary than some stuff. But if you consider the fact that refugees need a phone for their daily life, because for example they navigate to Europe and they go to other countries and they ask for help. This phone represents for shelter, food, everything for them.
The student would said we conducted surveys in different refugee camps, and also UWC alumni is responsible of opening refugee camps in Belgium. So he helped us with this, and we found out that 95% of refugees have a mobile phone, so it will be accessible for the majority of our target users.
So the last feature we want to show you guys, if you need, goes to the next slide. So we have this feature into the app where users have the option to have one-on-one lessons with teachers, with volunteer teachers. It's sort of going to work. It's going to work sort of like Zoom calls. It's going to mimic the experience of being in a classroom while not having to be physically in a classroom. We also have word banks, which is what Abu mentioned before, with the flashcards. And then we're also integrating AI into the app. So there's this other feature into the app that is you're gonna be able to take pictures of objects, and then the app is gonna detect what kind of object it is, and it's gonna show you the translation in Arabic, and it's gonna show you the translation in French.
And also with the AI part, the AI will be like analyzing your voice inputs and how good you pronounce or what best for that. It will be giving you feedbacks.
So in this way, like how we're integrating AI into the app, we're trying our best to mimic a real classroom experience to give users the best language learning experience.
Yeah. So how does language learning help refugees and asylum seekers? So like, as we mentioned it earlier, you find yourself all of a sudden in an office and you have to fill in certain documents to get your identity card, etc., or just a residence permit, and you don't know how to ask for help. And it can create like a lot of problems for refugees. Even it can increase the chances of getting discriminated against, because they don't speak the language. So if they have like a device, we call, as we mentioned the map earlier, in the map there is an option where you are in the office and all the important sentences that can be used in office are in there. So if you have that option, it can reduce the problems created for refugees. And also that you want to add something.
Yeah, so basically, this is giving an example. For other applications, you just basically go sign up for the application and then you go like learn like word by word and like the grammar and those unnecessary stuff. But for like AILEM, we have like everything in a specific context. We give it context for everything that they like learn. So for example, if you go to the hospital, you'll be able to go to the application, navigate to the hospital, and like learn all the phrases that are really, really important and critical. So that's why the application can be life-saving to some people.
And you just click on the button, in which the word is written and pronounce it for you. For example, if you're in a doctor, or you're in front of a doctor, you don't know how to say you have pain on your head. So you have headache, you just click on the button, and it says, I have headache in English. And translation would be in every other language, that's possible. And the app automatically pronounces it for you. So our approach with digital education and our approach with the app is kind of, well, the way I see this is the way which it makes it different. Can you move to the next slide? It's accessibility. First of all, like as we said earlier, we did the survey. 95% of refugees have a mobile phone, so it's accessible for them everywhere and wherever they go. And it's also offline, which increases the chance of its accessibility. Other products in the market, like the majority of them, are not offline. So the people who don't have internet cannot access it. Move to the next slide. And it's tailored and specific for refugees and also the people who all of a sudden find themselves in a new society, new country, new region. They don't know how to navigate in that place. So in that, we will be also teaching cultures and customs of different regions. For example, the way we teach the language is like by telling stories. And the story will be a story of a refugee guy, for example, from a country, a war country, which comes to, let's say, UK. So in UK, the refugee guy will find a friend and they will talk to each other, get to know each other better, and explain their cultures to each other. And like this, the refugee and the guy, they understand the culture of the UK resident, and the UK resident understand the culture of the refugee person. And like this, it helps like reducing discrimination and increasing understanding between different groups of individuals. In practicality and relevance, like as we said earlier, the fact that it's available for everybody on the phone for free makes it very practical, and also the app that it can help in so many different situations, provide help in so many different situations to everyone who needs it, in terms of language and also in terms of understanding culture. It's very relevant to the refugee group because, like as I said, for me, like all of a sudden when I came to Belgium, I would see like the way of life of people in Europe is very different than how it was in Afghanistan. So I didn't know what was the norms in society, the way people behave. So I feel myself to be a stranger. So that's how the app helped people to understand the culture. And all of this brings us to innovation. The way it's innovative is that it doesn't teach the language by making people forced to memorize words and grammar, context, etc. But it teaches language by telling stories. And everyone wants to hear a story, which are based on real life facts and truths. So if you are reading a story and at the same time running an app, it's very joyful and engaging for you. And that's why this idea is like different than others?
Empowerment. Okay. So because of this, refugees will be like brought together in one platform for the same purpose of like breaking the barrier created by the language and communication. And also because one of the features of the application is like those people will have like Zoom sessions with their communicate and shared experience in the background. It will kind of like improve their sense of belonging and like will empower them into like feeling that they're not alone. They're not the ones facing this problem alone.
A question. You said at the beginning your approach was more grammar-based, and then you moved to stories. And I also noticed that your design changed slightly.
Yeah.
Were you in touch with anyone? Did you collaborate with people? And what made you change your approach?
So basically, we work with a lot of experts who create ab initio curriculums for schools, especially experts in Belgium, and they, based on their feedback, we came up with the idea of like not focusing on the grammar and making people learn the grammar, but rather making making the people think that they are reading stories, but indirectly teaching the grammar and the vocabulary to them. And also, we were like the way the interface looked like was like you saw earlier, it was very simple, but now it has become like spacey. So basically, before getting the way the app works is that you have to build a rocket in the app. So you build the rocket by doing like these different challenges of language learning, and doing different tests and exercises and reading different stories. So when you finish the story, you get a certain part of the rocket, and your rocket is built. So once your rocket is built in the app, it allows you like to go and explore other planets in this space or inside the app. And each planet will be a different chapter. So it's at the same time, with the storytelling part, there is also like this gamification of it, where it urges the users to explore more and more, inside the app. So we were also in contact with Asim Sani, who is the co-founder of Ori, which is an app on public speaking. It uses artificial intelligence to help individuals with public speaking. And so we got help from Asim Sani. He's also a mentor. It also allowed us to like we are also currently working on AI to figure out AI, which will be analyzing the pronunciations of the users as mentioned earlier. Yeah.
And on the design part of things, we have a team of AC artists, and we work together in order to make the user interface and the icons and the whole branding for the app the most engaging and encouraging for users. So we tried to make it the easiest possible, very visual, so you didn't have to have any previous knowledge of other language learning apps or language in order to understand how to use the app.
Like the fun part is like you're reading stories, which is also fun, real life stories. But at the same time, as mentioned earlier, you are building rockets. So once your rocket is built, it can just blow up into space, and it can allow you to discover all the other planets. And each planet will be like a different chapter, a different story of an individual or something. So that's where it becomes like quite engaging.
There was a question from the chat. Is it worth including a fun test after each scenario and seeing if a certificate can be provided, which can be used for entry into educational establishments, perhaps?
Yeah, what we're thinking about is like we will have after every chapter, like after discovering every single planet, you will have a test that you have to pass. Not you won't like the test will give you a score, but it won't force you to pass it. You could still go on and discover other experience because you have your rocket, which allows you to discover. So that's the one part. And also in the app, there will be like these main tests that you can take, in the beginning of your learning language process. And it's gonna give you, for example, what's your language level? Is it A1, B1, or C1, etc. So that's the skill I'm gonna give you. It will always be there in the app. So you can take it at any time of your learning process and see how it evolves over time and how much content you develop to see yourself in the change in your speaking skills.
Yeah, and having a test on your certification for language, I think is really realistic because we've already seen, because of the pandemic, there's a lot of language learning tests that have transferred to online, and there's a lot of language learning apps also provide the service. So it might be interesting
It's like self-assessment in a sense to users, see their like how they learn.
What are your plans for broader use?
For broader,
like how you're gonna get people using it?
Yes.
So do you have plans like?
That's a good marketing question. So the way we're planning is like to release the Android version in January, and then after Android version we'll be working on a web app, and after that we'll be working on the iPhone version. So we're using different programming languages here to make it like platform specific. And also we will have in next summer in Belgium, there will be like official launch events in different refugee camps. And we'll be introducing the app in different refugee camps. And we'll be also using like different ads like Facebook ads or other companies like Google ads to go with that.
Yeah, and since we have like a really diverse team of different ways of work, like we're also open for like AC students to also be part of the application, because now we are trying to expand that curriculum and not only make it French, but also like curriculum for Spanish and other languages to sign and make it really good.
Yeah, so like the curriculum for French is done in, I think the curriculum for English language will be also done by January. And we have also individuals who want to work on Spanish curriculum and also Japanese curriculum, etc. So once like the concept, once it's launched for French, then it's very easy to change it for different languages, because we'll just like make a table of like the whole content and then use the program, to just go through every single table and then change the language.
Do you think you can collaborate with other universities? Where, like for example, my thinking was UWC because there are thousands of refugees currently stranded in Bosnia and Herzegovina who don't have access to education and so on. They're very bad, they live in awful conditions, and students there, they work with refugees directly. So might be a good thing to reach out there where
it would be lovely to like work with it, because we have the main template of how the app works, and then we can adopt it to like different languages, in different regions, in different cultures. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. Yeah. So.
No.
So once again, a big thank you to all our guest speakers, and all the presentations are very eye-opening, and about the educational challenges and the wide variety of solutions to address this. We hope that it has been a very engaging event, and I think we can all agree that free flow exchange of ideas and perspectives is very crucial in awareness, but also innovation. Right now, if Lighthouse have anything to say, I guess this will be the end of the event. And thank you everyone for joining and listening in.
We'd like to reiterate to our guests, thank you so much for joining us online, to our speakers, thank you so much. And a big thanks to Shini for all her work, collaborating and completely designing this conference. Thank you so much, Shini. You deserve another big round of applause.
We're now going to get into the workshop section here at UWC Atlantic, and we will be posting what we get from that online afterwards. So look out for that. Thank you.
Thanks again.